Good evening and welcome to a regularly scheduled meeting of the Ulysses Town Board. It is November 28th, 2023, and I will call this meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. May we please have a roll call?
Sure. Mr. Boggs.
Present.
Ms. Bouchard.
Present.
Ms. Olson.
Present.
Mr. Goldman.
Present.
Ms. Weatherby.
Present. Excellent, thank you. So we have an agenda that was posted, well, more than probably a week ago now. We've had some movement of things. So I'd like to propose some changes. Mtg requested coming in January. So I'd like to remove new business item A, 6A. We also do not have, moving down to 9, 10, 11, we don't have board notifications, budget modifications, or payments of audited claims at this particular meeting. So those items could all be struck from the meeting. Did anybody have any other alterations or additions?
I just wanted to see if we could cover this Carissa's email from November 20th about security at the public information meeting. We can have a discussion.
Certainly. I'll add that as item E. Are there any other alterations? I don't have any. Sounds good. Then I'll take a motion to approve the agenda. Is
Motion to approve as amended.
there a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that brings us to privilege of the floor. Give me just a second. I did not have my phone ready for this. Members of the public are welcome to each have up to 3 minutes to speak on an issue of their choosing. We take turns. We go back and forth from in person to remote. We've allotted for this agenda, we've allotted up to 30 minutes for this section. There's also a second privilege of the floor at the end of the meeting that we've allocated 10 minutes for. And again, each person is entitled to 3 minutes if they would like it. Is there anyone in person who wishes to address the board? Okay. Is there anybody online who wishes to address the board? You can come off video or you can come off mute or raise your hand. There's a raise hand feature. I will do one more call in person. Is there anybody in person who wishes to address the board? Okay. Is there anybody online who wishes to address the board? Okay, then we can move on. Typically our municipal board and staff reports and announcements are part of the first meeting or our first regular meeting. We did do announcements. There were announcements made that we made on a monthly basis, but most due to timing, the staff reports didn't get attached, so they were attached in this board packet. So I just wanted to bring your attention. Did anybody have among board members, were there any, or Carissa, is there any announcements that made in the meantime that's happened since we last convened?
I just had a question. Niels, we were at the planning board meeting. Somebody was gonna generate a note on the concerns the planning board had about this project.
Yeah, I haven't received anything yet from them, so I have a meeting with them next week and I'll ask them again.
Okay.
Okay. No, anybody else?
With the code enforcement report, the fire inspections are just about never included.
Sure. We our fire inspector will be effectively resigned as of December 1st. So I'm happy to include whatever the updated at the end of that.
Yeah, because I think there's several missing as I was going through there. And then on Michelle's, I highlighted that one, but that says May 24th. So I don't know if there's any update on that.
Yes, I actually signed paperwork. We're filing more paperwork that I signed literally today. On the Cemetery Bridge Road. What ended up happening, Mr. Boggs was asking a question about an item in a report about the Cemetery Bridge project, which concluded like 2 years ago now. And it's one of those weird situations where villages are not under state law allowed to own bridges. The bridge is in the village of Trumansburg, owned by the county. And prior to me even being, part of the process, the town was asked by the county to administer a grant to replace it. And the town, the final payment on that bridge project, which was successfully concluded, was a $30,000 payment. And there was paperwork misfiled, not by the town, but at the county level, or no, I'm sorry, not the county level either. The county will be not happy with me, at the state level in the paperwork processing of a program manager there, who subsequently doesn't even work for the state. And it was a difference of less than $1. And it turns out less than $1 can trigger, differences of that can still trigger a long and complicated process. And we think we're getting very close to getting the $30,000 the state still owes us. And I signed new paperwork on that request just today. So it's all a matter of having the right pieces of paper all clearing up. I offered to send them it's like 83 cents. And I was like, can I send you 83 cents? And I mean, I said that as a joke because of course New York State will take my 83 cents, but I'm like, I'd be happy to contribute 83 cents personally to we could just get this wrapped up, because it's one of those really pesky things that drives everybody in government and in the public crazy. So we're working through that process, but it's been a very long one. So, and the state moves when the state does, and we just hope you can go along for the ride. So, yep.
Caitlin, here's those, items.
Thank you very much. Okay, there brings us to a recreation update. I'd like to welcome Will Glennon, our recreation director. You can come on up. Now you have a seat. Pretty much now, I think, Will, you came, I think it was maybe in August or so, I think maybe September last year, you were able to join us.
Yep.
And so,
Yeah,
sorry.
the cord.
So we're always appreciative to have you come down and talk about what's going on in recreation.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Will Glennon. I'm the recreation director for the town of Ulysses. I've been in this role since February of 2019. So for recreation, the program has grown over the past few years post-COVID. We have increased programming by taking on some of the programs that were run independently, such as basketball. We have grown programs that were at once a part of what was called the Trumansburg Community Education Program, which has now come under recreation, which this is now all the adult programming that we offer. So with these programs, we've also been able to get a greater reach for the people in a community, for them to be able to participate in physical activity, to be able to work, do physical activity with other members of their community. We have expanded for recreational opportunities for children so that they have opportunities to do activities with their friends, and then have a chance to either do clinic style activities where they are staying in the community. They also have activities where they can practice in a community, and then also participate and play against other communities. So these programs, were about 1,700 registrations for the 2023. We use a software program that's called software program that's called that does all the registrations for us and allows us to be able to monitor all the people that are registering for these programs. Currently, the program has 869 people that are registered within Rec Desk that take part in the different programs that we operate. I'm here today. Do we want to talk about that now or just?
Sure.
As far as for the programming needs that we have, with the fields that are on the docket for purchase by the town. The recreation program has grown in such a way on its own, as well as for other programs in the town that are not under the town, but are run privately by different organizations. The only fields that we have to be able to use are the school fields. The school is and the school facilities inside for the high school, elementary school, and middle school gymnasiums on the inside, and any of the fields there, including their stadium. These fields, the school is extremely generous in offering us and other organizations the use of their fields. The growth of their athletic programs, along with the growth of recreation programs and the growth of outside programs, have made it so that it's really difficult for everyone to be able to utilize the space altogether. So a case in point or examples of when this is at its height is practices for the school traditionally end at 5. That does not include any interscholastic athletic events that they may have that will go longer. They start later and they go longer into the evening. So on any of the practice days, recreation and other private organizations can use that facility after those practices are done. Right? The school has their priority for their students. They also are generous in giving space for us, knowing that their same students are using these programs after school. In the springtime, for example, so we will run, or use baseball programs for us, along with like track programs. So we will run a baseball program. The baseball program can have upwards of about 128, 130 participants. So those participants make up a number of different teams. They're not all going to be on the same field at the same time. So those 128 participants get broken out into 9 different teams, and these teams need fields of different sizes. So older students or older participants who are 11 and 12, so to speak, this is just for youth sports alone, they need a certain size field. The 9 and 10-year-olds, they need a certain size field. People that are 8 and younger, they don't need a specific size field for them, but what we are given to be able to use is just general field space that I go out and line with field marking paint to determine where these groups are going to play. The school allows us to use different parts of their fields when we are doing this. So for baseball, other organizations also use different parts of the field, and they will use it for their activities as well. Because there's only essentially from like 5:15 until in the springtime, it gets a little bit later, but it's dark when we begin, but then the light gets a little bit later. We only have until about like 7:30, 8 o'clock at the most to be able to use those fields. Other people are using them at the same time. So if we have the baseball field that we can use for this age is a softball size field. It's not a Major League Baseball size field. Soccer can also use the soccer field, like on the outside as well. We can use the other modified field on the other side. If you're not familiar with these fields, just behind the middle school softball field, baseball field space each other, and they have a soccer field in between. So if we have soccer and we have one baseball team on one side and one baseball team on the other side, they are hitting baseballs or kicking soccer balls into other groups.
And that's rather routine.
Right, and we, along with those other organizations, do our best in order to try to schedule around each other, but there's just not enough space in order for us to do it safely so that everyone gets to be able to participate in the activities that they want to participate in, and do so without interruption. So the school, when they have events that they have games, we schedule around those games. So if they have games that go late, we have interruptions in our programs. Other activities have interruptions in their programs. So it makes it difficult for people to have a consistent program that they can do. So this is just for youth sports in spring, one example. Having fields that are accessible for the community on our own, for youth alone, takes off the pressure of having everything to be encompassed in one area, the school, where the school has to try to maintain a relationship with rec, the town, and with other entities. It makes it difficult for them to balance, even though they're very generous in their time, but makes it a little bit easier for us if we had another space to be able to set up fields for youth to be able to participate in activities at that point in time. Uninterrupted schedule and uninterrupted, not talking anything about weather, but just as far as consistent programming. We've also increased our adult rec programming. So at this point in time, there's no adult rec programming that can be done like outside on those fields at any point in time, unless there's no school activities going on at that point in time. So with the youth programming, taking all that space at the school from the time that the school ends practice and then youth practice, there's no outdoor space for adult rec programming to occur. This can be alleviated by allowing like another space for adults to be able to do activities as well. This is not something that is provided for right now in the town. The programs, and as I've talked with the school, and I kind of agree with them in some respects on this, it is like school programs, youth programs, and adult programs. So it's for us, the more space that we are having a space of our own in order to provide recreational opportunities will just enhance like the community as far as people being able to use resources within Struensburg and within Ulysses versus having to go out of the town to be able to use those facilities elsewhere. So right now, people do leave the community to go to be able to use facilities elsewhere. And this facility is for the field space and for the field space to use for these different activities. The other communities in Tompkins County also have these that serve like their own communities. So this is not something that would be any different from any other community being able to have space such as this in order to offer recreational programming. So these towns, they have it. Some can be like very elaborate where for Cass Park, that area, or very elaborate like they have out in Lansing, or much smaller like what they have brand new, which is just basically field space with like a backstop or two that they have in Newfield. So in Newfield's the one that was the most recent, very similar to this, where it was field space taken on that they have for recreational purposes for the town. So so that's where the need comes in for space for teams. This happens in the fall, this happens in the spring, between the generosity of the school, but then the impact of the town surrounding it to be able to get those fields. So
Well,
any questions on that?
As an interim measure, have anyone talked to the fairgrounds about using some of
So,
their fields?
I have in the past, like talked to the fairgrounds to be able to use their field. So a couple of years ago, we tried to move some of baseball to like this from
The infield.
the infield. So many people, the infield inside that track. And people, I guess, from many years ago would play there, and that's where they grew up playing baseball.
I think that's where the modified team used to play.
Okay, and the modified youth team play there. So it looks like it would be like a great facility, but we can't maintain it. So we could, and we had volunteers that redid that whole infield, looked beautiful. They mowed the grass, they like set it all dirt, it's all like covered over in grass now. But the fairgrounds, they run their other
Events.
their other events, and then it's a parking lot. So then they're just coming over and they just like park all over it. So as far as at certain times, it will be flattened grass, and other times it will just have cars parked on it. So for us to be able to use it like one off, that we have, like I've been out there lining soccer fields and lining baseball fields and out there, but the constant maintenance is not feasible as far as if we do put a field on it, that doesn't mean it's not gonna be like a parking lot all weekend and come back in and do it again.
Yeah.
But yes,
Okay,
And
thank you.
baseball is one of those programs that actually does run during the summer, so that, you know,
Yeah.
it might not be a big deal potentially, you know, in October. But nobody's playing baseball in October, but,
oh, yeah. that's-
Some
I mean,
people are.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Lakers
Yeah,
are-
yeah.
Get to a fair,
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
right.
exactly.
Great.
And
Yeah.
yeah, there's other.
No.
And those are all wonderful things. It just makes it very difficult. And I remember like during COVID, I really as a shout out to the fair board, I really do appreciate that they allowed us access to it. It made baseball possible because the school during COVID shut down to all outsiders.
Right.
And so there was a period of time for a year and a half plus, I think, where nobody could do any like games there at all.
Yeah. And they allowed us to have our summer camp.
Yeah,
There.
that's right.
Right after COVID. So the fairgrounds has been very generous, but they have like the events that they run and like in their priorities. And
Yeah.
And it doesn't always, naturally it doesn't always equal out.
From 2022, are the numbers increasing? You said there's 1,700 registrants.
Yes, I could,
I can look that up. for you in just a second.
I could pull that up. So increasing in registrations, yes, I can say yes, I can't tell you the number off the top of my head. Yes, because we've been able to expand like programming. So being able to offer like more variations of programs. Before I came up, I was just writing down the numbers just for adult rec programming alone from this fall of 2022, when we took on that program, we had 126 community members that were taking part in adult recreation. And then currently right now we have 179 that are taking part in a recreation program that's like individuals and not just gross. We have when we took it on, there was one volleyball night, 2 soccer and 1 basketball. And now we have we have the 2 soccer, we have 3 volleyball nights. So that's going like basically 4 nights a week using the middle school gym at night. And then we'll have 2 pickleball programs. We have yoga program, and then we still have like the basketball program and the 2 soccer program. So we're being able to expand and offer like more programming. Most of this comes from community asking versus me putting it out there. So can we have another night? We have 15 people that want to play volleyball but can't. Can we do it? Can we open up another space? We have a number of people that want to participate, but we can't fit in. So we're going to try to put it another day. We have pickleball in the afternoon. People can't make that. So now they want to have pickleball like the first thing in the morning, and so there's a number of different ways that we like try to do it. Having the space for increasing the opportunity for them like helps. So
That was
right
gonna
now,
be my other question,
yeah.
actually, was just, have there been any requests for programs that we just can't support because we don't have the space for them?
So right now, so we just started and we have a new person that's like working with us and running yoga for us, right? So we run yoga out of the cardio room in the high school, which is not necessarily the best room for yoga. But they've run it, and there was a lot of people who are really interested in it, but the space is not conducive. So finding like a different space would help. That's a much larger space that I don't have that right now. So that the first opportunity I have to be able to move that to like a larger space wouldn't be until March. And most of that's because if we have our own like rec basketball programs that take all the space, the school is like starting a new modified wrestling program. They have really large modified basketball programs that they have. And since they have all their sports, they have like their indoor winter track programs. They're taking up all that space, pushes us back, pushes other, there's other outside of rec organizations that are also in space, so it just moves them down. So we don't have that space. So yeah, there are people that are asking for activities and we can try to get them in there. We can't get the space. There was another opportunity for a self-defense class for youth that has been brought to me. There's an instructor for it. There's there's parents that are interested in having this self-defense class, but I don't have any place to put it yet. So that's another thing with that self-defense class, good start. In March, when there's, you know, alleviated pressure, we're not gonna put them like outside, we're not gonna put self-defense class where they don't have like mats or anything else like in a cafeteria. So it's getting space to that. So there are programs that we could put in. We don't have the space yet. Some of that is just when are we gonna put different programs at different.
So well, when we have a volleyball program at night in the school, is somebody from the school always there? Or where's
So
the keys? Who opens up? How does that?
so facilities, so there's a calendar that I can request space. And there's always a facilities custodian there from the town or from that work with me. I have facilitators that are the representatives for the town for those programs. So there's always a school custodian. They're there, they unlock the door for us at 7:30, and then it's open until 9:30, and then they lock it up after we leave.
And the school pays these people for that? We don't?
They're there anyway.
They're there.
Yeah, so if they're not there, then we don't have a program. So case in point, last week, so we normally have these programs Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Last Thursday was Thanksgiving, so obviously everyone's off there, but the school was off all week. So our programs like didn't run. So if they don't have somebody there, it doesn't run. If there's a 3-day weekend, Monday's a holiday, the Sunday programs won't run, the Monday program won't run. But if it's a Friday off, sometimes the Thursday program won't run, but the Sundays will, because the custodian will be in there preparing the school for the upcoming week.
A lot of organizing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. The school, as I've like said, is super generous in the calendar. Which for anyone that has an organization that works with the school, the calendar gets pretty loaded up pretty fast. So just on like athletic fields and gym space, it'll be like 10 to 12 reservations every day for the different spaces in the different times. So they have it all blocked out. You can miss it sometimes.
Would you mind, there are a couple of questions that I think have been asked in the public that I think would be helpful for you maybe to elaborate on. One of the questions I've heard is why isn't the school providing sports education? Why is the town doing it, or why are other organizations doing it? Why is the school not doing the sports education that we're doing through the rec program?
Well, so the school does, so the school offers interscholastic sports from 7th grade on. So from the 6th grade and below, there aren't any organized interscholastic sports on that level. The school and the whole state, they offer it from 7th grade all the way through 12th grade. So they can have modified programs, and the school offers all these programs. They are budgeted. This is what like the school taxes and everything else like go for as part of like their money. They have their athletic budget. They're offering all of those activities for the younger ages. They can have after school type programs, but they don't generate more athletic programs. And this isn't any different than any other town or city out there for a school district. From the 6th grade down, they don't offer any sports. They have like their physical education that they have like in class. They may have after school programs that they offer, but they're not usually sports based. Or athletic or physical activity based. In my experience, most of those, if any, would be done by a PTA, or they'd be done by outside fundraising. They would come in, they would be for a fee, like small fee, but they would fundraise it for it to keep like their prices down, and they'd bring in somebody that would do a running clinic for like 6 weeks, and they would come in and the children would run, or they would start another type of program and also do it for 6 weeks, and another type of program and also do it for 6 weeks. And that was how the school would be able to offer some programming, but it was done not by the school, by an outside organization. So it wouldn't be anything different than like our town rec or the Ithaca Youth Bureau or any other organization that would come in and run a program for a school, whether it's either at the school or outside of it, or like Cornell Cooperative Extension, their youth development, those type of programs.
The other question, thank you. The other question that has percolated up is, questions over, private organizations using space versus the town organizations or town using space versus the school programming. And I was wondering if you wouldn't mind talking about how, because Will is our first recreation director. The recreation used to be run by the village, and then in 2019, it was consolidated into the town. And when Will came in, and then like 5 minutes later, COVID happened, and
Gotcha.
it's been a very interesting ride for you. So I'm happy you're here. And I was just joining the town board when you were coming on also, and the town at that point, and when Rich was there, Michael, maybe you could talk about it too. There was a desire not to step on toes, because there's already active programming that's happening in soccer, in football, in baseball, travel baseball, summer travel baseball. And the village ran a very successful baseball program for many years in their recreation department. Would you mind talking about how you selected programs and what your philosophy has been, that's really did come from the town board of wanting to, work around what was already here?
Yeah, so my philosophy has been there are some great programs that are in this community that have been running for a very long time, and there is no sense in having to replicate those programs. So I do not need to have a travel soccer-based program because Teganic Soccer has a travel-based program. I do not have to have a football program because there's a football program. I do not have to have a summer travel baseball program because there's already one in place. So the programming that any programming that I put forward is to help those programs that are already in the community by either taking on like a different age group that they are not working with. So for soccer, this fall, we had a soccer clinic that was for kindergarten through 3rd grade, right? So most of those players, they're new to the game. They are not going to go and travel from here to Binghamton to go play in a soccer tournament. So it's like for us, I can offer that clinic, it can be once a week, and people can get introduced to soccer. And then once that they have those skills, the parents can then make the decision, I'm going to go and I'm going to join Teganic Soccer. Or if they are in a baseball program, which is the rec program complements the other baseball program, and it's been set up for years, is from the middle of April until the beginning of June. We run a little rec program. It's their development skills. Anyone can come in. There's no cuts. Everyone can play. And then that program can then go into the summer. They've already been playing. They can join those programs. So for the rec and the decision on the different programs that we run, it's the space that we have, it's the interest in the community, and then being able to complement other organizations that are have been doing it well for a long time, or can actually like do it better than we can for the resources that they may have.
Thank you. Any other questions from the town board?
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you
so
very
much
much.
for coming.
Excellent.
Okay. I will also, it's part of Will's job, but while he's here, I would like to compliment him on a very successful summer camp program. We sold out and had a waiting list for every week except the first week of the program, which is always the 4th of July weekend, which is always a weird programming week, as a lot of people have that time off. And it serves a really important role in providing affordable childcare in our community. And I know from personal experience that Will works directly with every family to make sure that they are able to participate. And we have methods built into the budget budgeting to not turn families away because of financial limitations. And that's making a huge difference in our community. So thank you very much. There is so much work that goes on behind the scenes to make that possible, and we really appreciate it. Okay, moving on. Special election update. I just wanted to give some updates, and then we do have a resolution. I'd like to just go through a few things. The special election, as a reminder, is on December 6th. There are two voting locations. You can pick which one you vote at. You do not have to go to a particular one, but only go to one. Don't vote in both, just vote in one. The special election will run from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. The two locations are Village Hall and the Racker Center. And the town staff has been putting a lot of information, over the last several months, the town staff has put a lot of information together about the process. And I'd like to, publicly thank our town clerk, Carissa Parlato, for doing an excellent job overseeing the procedures related to hosting a special election. And I'd also like to thank the Tompkins County Board of Elections, who has really helped guide that process as well. The town board had appointed at a previous meeting a board of registration, and they held 2 voter registration meetings, and 2 additional residents from the community from Ulysses were registered to vote for town only elections. And so I want to thank the board of registration for fulfilling this very important responsibility. Absentee ballots are still available for pickup at Town Hall. If you want to have yours mailed to your absentee ballot mailed to you, your application needs to be in no later than tomorrow. And this is established by state law, that it's 7 days is the deadline for that. But you of course can have an absentee ballot that is collected in person up until the day before the election, so December 5th. All absentee ballots need to be back by 5 p.m. on the day of the election, December 6th. Tonight, we're going to be appointing our 8th and final poll inspector. All poll inspectors came from a list of poll inspectors provided by Tompkins County Board of Elections, and that list was also what generated the individuals that were appointed to our board of registration. The town board has obviously, and I myself in particular, recognize that land acquisitions for local governments can take a long time. It's taken us 14 months to get to where we are now with a special election on a specific piece of property. The town, through 3 different town supervisors, has been working with the Village of Trumansburg, the Trumansburg Central School District, and the Trumansburg Community Recreation dating back to 2016. The town has been looking for land dating back to at least the early 1990s under then Supervisor Doug Ostick. I look forward, and I'm sure, I assume I speak for my colleagues when I say that I look forward to the democratic process being fulfilled through the special election. Ultimately, the question before the voters on December 6th is about whether the public agrees with the town board that the current proposal fulfills longstanding goals and increases recreation opportunities in our community for people of all ages. That's the vote that the town board has already taken. If the voters approve the land, I will work with the town board, the staff, and the public to create an inclusive planning and design process and establish a financially responsible development approach. The town of Newfield has followed a very similar process to great success. They purchased land in 2006. It was supported by a public referendum. And then an engaged community was able to fundraise and develop that property, and it was not paid for out of the tax base. So if the voters reject the purchase, I will also respect that. I will understand from that vote that the voters, for whatever reason, are not ready to make an acquisition, and that more time and public feedback should be collected that lays out a more nuanced vision of what the town wants. The town board and myself, and I will speak for myself when I say this, but there was certainly discussion that the town board felt that this was fulfilling a comprehensive plan objective from the 2009 comprehensive plan, which is our current comprehensive plan that we're operating under. The previous town boards, for any number of reasons, I don't know, I wasn't there really for it, did not undertake a recreation plan that the public requested in the last comprehensive plan. But however, we are currently undertaking a new comprehensive plan. And I would actively encourage anyone in the town to get involved and help us plan together for the future of our community. The reality is that because these land acquisition processes take a very long time, and if the public votes no, again, if that would be perfectly fine, and we will move forward ahead. But the idea of we would want to make sure, at least speaking for myself, I would want to make sure that we engaged in a longer public engagement process on the future of recreation in Ulysses before taking any additional actions. We've been committed, the town board has been committed through this entire process to making investments in town facilities to make them more sustainable, efficient, and accessible. And the public is always welcome to share their thoughts and visions for how we should use our shared town resources. So I'd like to say a thank you. This is the last town board meeting before the special election. So I did want to take time to say thank you to the town board, to the public, and to the staff for all of those individuals who have put careful thought, time, and effort into this democratic process. Reasonable minds can differ on the best course of action. And so I think this is going to be a really exciting day for Ulysses to go through this process, regardless of what the outcome of the vote is. And I would also like to thank the Village of Trumansburg trustees. Last night, they unanimously supported a resolution in favor of this purchase of the land that the voters will consider on December 6th. So. Any questions from the town board about the special election before we take up the resolution? No. Okay, the resolution tonight is to appoint our 8th and final member to be a poll inspector. And that person is Patricia Steno, sorry. And she would be appointed to serve at the Racker Center. And the resolution lays out all the people who've already been appointed. All poll workers will be paid $17 per hour, and the resolution will take effect immediately. So, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? No. All those in favor? Aye. I also wanted to make sure and if anybody in the public, we will get this posted. It came out too late this evening from the town attorney, but we will could we get it posted on our tomorrow? Could we get it posted on the referendum page? It's a memo from the attorney. The town board at our last town board meeting. Some town board members, we had a discussion and conversation, and I said that I would get a memo from the town attorney related to concerns that were raised in the public or by someone in the public about the permissive referendum process and how that process works and what should be included and not included. And so we will get that posted because it's a lawyer talking, and so it's the takeaway is that the town followed the legal process. So we will get that posted tomorrow for the public to have access to as well. Any questions or thoughts about that from the board?
That sounds fine. Yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to we have a presentation on related to Development District 3, which is for those who don't have their development districts memorized. It's the former Bar Angus property on Route 96 and Halseyville Road, the intersection.
It's former, it still is.
Well, I don't think one could say the Bar Angus is currently open, so it's that property, the Bar Angus.
I mean, the building's there, but
the building's there, but
it's been
the,
shut down for 10 years. 11?
Am I expected to be presenting or am I just answering questions for you guys or what is the process?
This says presentation.
well, that was what I put on the list. I think what would be helpful is if maybe you described your intention and Niels can pipe in with any additional information, because we just like to, I think, hear what you're proposing to do with the property.
Totally. I guess I wasn't under that total impression for tonight, which is fine, but I do have a PowerPoint and I would have liked to have brought it, but I can certainly just talk you generally through it. But yeah, I'm Devin Van Noble. I met Rich last time and nice to meet you all. I have Van Noble Farm on Podunk Road in T-Burg. I think you guys have read a bit of the summary. I don't need to bore you with it, but yeah, happy to be looking at the prospect of tearing down the old Bar Angus and putting up a new building there. And we have a kind of multifaceted business, and so it's probably a little bit maybe confusing a bit as to what exactly we're doing there. And it is there are various elements to it, but the basis is that there's basically a restaurant business that includes a lot of catering that we do, and then there's a butchering and packaged products business. So those are the real two arms of the operation. And the building would lay roughly in the footprint of the existing building, slight expansion on it. But it would service both the needs of our butcher end of things, like we'd be bringing carcasses and have them in a walk-in cooler there. We wouldn't be slaughtering there, but just cutting meat there, making our value-added products like sausages and bacons and pate and etc. And then as you move forward, after the cut room, there's kind of a large production kitchen, which would be for servicing the patio guests that would be coming to eat, our barbecue, the public that's coming to eat our barbecue on site, as well as our catered events that are held both offsite or potentially on site here at the property. So those are the main tiers of the business. There's like a front retail room and kind of bar area, service counter that would lead out into a patio space that will lead kind of down into the lawn, and then there would be our 40-foot by 100-foot event tent up in the back. And that's the rough picture of it. And there is a single wide trailer that was part of development district, or there's actually two single wide trailers part of development district 3 from the under the old zone. And we would like to subdivide the currently in use trailer that's on the back of the property along Halseyville Road, and it's a pretty logical subdivision. There's a wooded area and a driveway that cuts off like kind of the back corner of this 12.5 acre property. And so that would mean 2.75 acres would go into the subdivision, about 9.1 acres would be retained for the Bar Angus quote unquote property. And yeah, I mean, that's the rough rundown.
No, that's really helpful. Niels, what at this point, what the town board, if I and Niels provided a staff memo that's very helpful, thank you, that was posted as part of the public packet. The recommendation coming from you is that the town board determine from this conversation whether or not it sounds like it has merit. What this would require is an alteration to a development district. It is the town board has the ability, the discretion is the word, the legal discretion to alter the zoning requirements for development districts. And in a previous instance where a property owner at the end of Taganic asked us to consider, in that case, creating a development district, the town board proposed or referred the proposal to the planning board to go through a process. And that's your recommendation for tonight?
Sure.
Yeah.
So we would be looking to update the zoning code to modify the development district to allow additional uses. Are they
So,
more specific to what they're proposing?
so what, yes, essentially, so what we would not be telling that, we would have the planning board evaluate whether or not they made a recommendation to do it and what their recommendation is. In this case, Niels is also recommending, that we actually have, standards. Why don't you explain that part, what's missing from this development district?
Yeah, so the town never or established zoning regulations for the lot. When it was created, the only thing the town put in was the uses that are permitted, so restaurant, bar, and then the 2 mobile home dwelling units. And then it referred to sections for signage and off-street parking, and that's it. There's no setbacks requirements, there's no lot coverage, there's no setback buffers for streams and wetlands. So my suggestion and recommendation is that in this process, the town develop those and product them.
And Niels, so why did this go to the planning board first? Should, I mean, because if we're gonna send it back to the planning board. Shouldn't we have just had it here first and then to the planning board?
So when I first had discussions with Devin and for his proposal, at first I wasn't sure of the extent of what he's requesting for the butchering component. His plan, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the plan is within 5-10 years to increase the butchering component. So once it gets to that 50% threshold, then we're looking at a use from a wonky land use perspective, we're looking at a use that's comparable to restaurant use. And butchering, whereas it can be a accessory use to a restaurant, once you get to like 50% or something greater like that, it starts becoming its own use. And normally butchering would be a component of like light manufacturing. So it's good practice to have that on the docket as far as what's permitted use. The other thing that I wasn't aware of at the time is subdivision. So given that we want to subdivide the land, we should definitely have some lottery requirements, lot dimensions, so that's all that stuff.
Right.
That's included. So
And the subdivisions planning board.
it's fun.
Right.
Can I
So-
just clarify one thing with Niels for everybody, I guess, in the situation that I decided not to go so large with the butchering element of the business, and it was 25% of the business, would we not have to go through this process at all?
In my summation, I would consider that an accessory use to a restaurant.
Great.
You
So I
still have
might
to go
put
through.
myself in a dumb
Maybe
situation.
you still have to
unnecessarily.
go through the process.
Well, I'd have to go through a permitting process,
Yes.
but I wouldn't have to be going through a zoning process.
Well,
So my understanding of the development district is once this development district is done. Then it reverts back to the surrounding zoning. Don't shake your head, please. That Barangas is done and this goes away, right? This would be completely new. And that's what I would, I would kind of stand for. So this is no longer Barangas. That whoever the town board was that established this, whatever, 30 years ago or 40 years ago now. They had an idea what this was, and then it goes away. So as far as subdividing the trailer, we don't allow mobile homes in the town of Ulysses. That mobile home is supposed to go away, be removed from the property. That's
Okay.
what the law says when it was established 40 years ago.
It's an interesting take.
Yeah, so when those people, the Browns, I believe it was, when they passed and their heirs, so I don't think the people living in there anymore are related to the Browns. Somebody's renting it
They're
out.
tenants, yeah.
Yeah, to a tenant. That thing needs to go away. As per the law.
Okay,
Barangas is done, that trailer's supposed to
That's-
go away.
I mean, that's the first time I've ever heard that
So
interpretation.
then as far as also, when I keep asking about Lucas and the fire inspections, the mobile home behind it really needs to be condemned,
Yeah, no, we're.
right? Well, so what I'm getting at here is we have a development district and we have nobody that enforces them.
And. Okay.
So to me, that's a big
Right.
issue.
Just
Yeah, so it's not you, I'm knocking what you're proposing to us, but the process, this is not, to me, it's not a modification of this.
Where'd you get that
Kinda
law?
hearing
Yeah, I
what
don't
you're
What?
saying.
Where are you quoting from, what law?
From our zoning,
Our zoning.
yeah,
Do you mind if I take a?
yeah. No, go ahead.
Niels, what do you think about?
So what is the
So wait.
surrounding zone?
Wait.
It's-
I think it's the surrounding zone is agricultural.
Agricultural rural.
Yeah. Which might be more favorable to you,
I don't think that would allow me to do.
but you know, so that we have to look in the ag zone and see what the uses are, but those have setbacks. Those have
Well, and then
rules
we'd
set
be
forth.
talking about a variance process.
Whoa, whoa,
Oh,
whoa.
wait,
No,
wait,
let's.
But-
Neil, I wanna hear, what do you think of Michael's?
I've heard, I
Wait,
don't know
wait,
where
wait,
that
wait,
language came
Wait,
from.
wait a
but-
minute, Niels, what do you think about that?
So there's a lot of questions there. I'll try to remember each one. Is Nate on board by chance or no?
No, but I've had a conversation about development districts with Nate, and I'm happy to introduce that conversation.
I've had several discussions with him too, and it might be helpful for legal to be, to answer questions.
Well, yeah, we would need more of the legal on that. We would have to, we could go to New York State. Cause I know our interpretation of it is very different. That, we're trying to slide some of these development districts around.
Well,
Yeah, good.
I just wanna hear, what do you say?
So on the first topic, if the development district just disappears and reverts back, I'll let Nate speak for himself and from a legal perspective. From my perspective, and granted, most of my experience is in a different state, but once the town issues a variance for a special use permit, or in this case, a rezone to a development district, that's in perpetuity until the town officially decides to do otherwise, and it has to go through those courses. So the fact that the Browns and whomever initially instigated this process and whatnot are no longer in the picture is irrelevant. It's still development district 3 until the town board makes an action otherwise. So those uses and everything in that section of code for DD3 is still applicable. That's my perception, or my interpretation of it. The issuance or the issue of the mobile home, I get, and chatted with Nate on this too, that the language in the code says that at any time that Howard and Anna Brown or the survivor of that no longer occupied them, it's removed. So then there's a legal question of who is that survivor, and that could be heirs or assigns. And so
Is it one of them needs to be removed or both?
One.
Just one of them, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, we are removing one.
But I think to Michael's question, the issue is then, is anyone who pushes that property
Are
becomes an
you?
heir and
Yeah.
assign, and so then it can.
But it does say thereafter, only a single mobile home shall be permitted.
Yeah,
So
so that seems.
It is permitted.
Yeah.
This is after they die, and they're assigned, then
Yeah,
there's
that
still can
says
be
the
a,
second one shall be removed.
but a single mobile home shall be
Yeah, we
permitted.
are removing the second.
They are removing.
No, but we don't allow mobile homes
Well, how did this ever get written?
because it was a development district. If you look at the second mobile home, the one behind
Yeah,
bar restaurant
yeah.
can stay there. The second one,
What is, am I missing something? Is there's no single wide trailers in the
No.
town of Ulysses?
just in Jacksonville Heights or Jacksonville Trailer Park,
Like right around like
you will never see.
Koskinen's and that, there's a brand new one right over there.
Yeah.
What, isn't that in the town of Ulysses? It's a brand new single wide trailer. It was just put up 4 months ago.
Well, then somebody,
No, it's not his. It's
Sorry, I'm not trying to cause problems or anything, but.
no, but
Mobile, okay.
Yeah.
Mobile homes are considered,
Like a travel trailer.
there's a distinction, right? So if you're talking about like a Winnebago, that's different than a mobile home. Mobile manufactured home under federal law has various definitions and specifications. Those are considered dwelling units. So if there's a law that allows single family residential dwelling units, a mobile home, manufactured home is a dwelling unit, and that is permitted. If it's talking about using a Winnebago as a permanent home,
Yeah.
that's not. But manufactured mobile
Okay, well, then
homes,
you're interpreting it different than anybody else we've ever had in your position.
Well, where's where in the code does it say they can't have
Well, I printed 4 pages.
mobile homes?
We allow mobile homes single under what our current zoning is, single wide mobile homes are not allowed outside of a mobile home park,
But double wides.
but double wides are.
Yeah, double wides are different than what's on that lot.
But this still says a single mobile home shall be permitted there. Which would seem to grandfather in that
Only
particular
if
mobile
the
home.
Browns,
No,
No.
if they're
The
dead,
first one.
they no longer occupy the second mobile home. One of the mobile homes shall be immediately removed and shall not be replaced. Thereafter, only a single mobile home shall be permitted therein. So this language is permitting as kind of grandfathered.
but if the Browns own it, only if the Browns own it.
No,
It
says
at
there.
such time that they no longer occupy the second mobile home. That has nothing to do with,
Doesn't say both, it does just say second mobile home.
one of the mobile homes shall be immediately removed.
You're missing one of the paragraphs in there.
What are we missing?
But anyway, I would argue that this to me shouldn't come to us. We have a BZA, we have a planning board,
Maintenance of mobile home.
and it's not a, this is supposed to be a
For the
separate
second.
body that's dealing with this.
to
So this
request
one is
to
probably-
expand the use, then kicks it back to the zoning ordinance, which then, because it's a development district,
Well, it might be a BZA then.
it's not the BZA, it would be whether or not the town board merits for the consideration for amendments to the development district, which then goes back to the planning board.
Yeah, so my stance on it, that on any of these development districts is once they're done as
Yeah,
Barangas, then, but
I don't see anywhere, I don't see anywhere where it says that. Michael, and under CB, under development district, B is maintenance of mobile home adjacent to the existing bar and restaurant is an allowed use.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think the language you're referring to, if I'm correct, is from the state language regarding development district law. Right?
Well, that supersedes.
And
town.
that's what supersedes all of this, and I don't know exactly what
Yeah.
that does said about it, or say about it.
well,
but-
it's something we need to look at, because several of our development districts are are no longer, in use.
And say that is the law, would we consider rezoning it away from DD3 into some other zone?
To maybe your own development district,
Or sure, whatever.
right? I don't know what
Is
that
that
is.
not the same thing as what we're doing?
No, it's not
Another
modifying,
ordinance.
but it would be, rewritten to,
Right,
into whatever
okay.
your
But I
responsibility.
think
Right,
that-
I think that's
that's
what
the
had been
idea.
discussed at the planning board meeting,
Right.
if I remember, when I was watching the video, that was what the intent had been. Was to
But like
defer back up
What
to
Niels was
us.
saying, this was done 40 years ago,
Yes,
and he says it has no setbacks.
right,
So,
and then we would be creating, so we would be taking into account what Devon is looking to do.
yeah, just like how
And
this was
reapplying
created.
some
and
new
was-
standards that are
Yeah.
now like
I think
required
it's up to the
by.
town board now, we can do whatever we want with this district. We can add
Well,
buffers, we
no,
can
you would
add,
create a new district.
we'll create a new, yeah,
You would create a new one. You wouldn't, this one is done.
well, it's not clear.
Not automatic.
I don't think so, Michael.
Well, you either create, call it.
Well, I think we're gonna use it as a starting base. I don't think it's thrown away
DD3 is going
completely.
away, maybe
It
you make
doesn't
it
go back
DD.
into AR. But we can
Well,
do,
maybe it does.
not automatically, it doesn't sound like, unless we can get that legal interpretation.
Because we've got
Yeah,
several.
basically.
Nate's take on some of these things.
I'm happy to share that conversation. I've had the
Oh, okay.
conversation.
Oh,
All right, so share the conversation.
So the conversation I had is that once with Nate and where you can certainly get an advice of counsel, and Niels has spoken to Nate as well. And so please correct me if anything I say does not coincide with what your conversations have been with him. Is that establish that altering development districts or creating development districts is at the discretion of the town board.
Right.
And there's a process for somebody to ask for a development district or to ask for amendments to the district, and a procedure that we could process through. The reality is the town board has taken no action to dissolve this development district. And so we have the development district that we have, and we have a property owner who has been, operating in good faith, believing they are in development district 3, and a proposed owner who is believed they would be purchasing a property in development district 3. That's not illogical from a legal perspective for those conditions to exist. So when I spoke to Nate about this development district and the process we go through, he also recommended that if the town board thought this had merit, that we forward it back to the planning board for consideration of alterations, allowing a subdivision, if that's what the planning board thought was a recommendation, and get their recommendation. That's why we have a planning board. And the planning board can also make recommendations about appropriate setbacks and the necessary components for it as well.
Right.
Again, that's why we have.
But
a
I
planning
still don't know why they went to the planning, isn't it?
They didn't, Neil's, when the original proposal, they didn't realize to the full extent of some alterations they wanted to make. When the planning board and when Neil's realized the extent of the changes desired, it realized that it needed an alteration to the development district
Right.
language, and only the town board can choose to do that. Our step is to ask for their recommendation, their
Can I
advice.
Ask one more clarifying, along the lines of what I was just asking about earlier about 25% and whatnot. If I was to say right now, let's just forego the idea of manufacturing and butchering there. And in 5 years, I say I want to, and we want to rezone. Can we just come back and do this process then as the owner? And we just have to run the risk of not being able to?
You can run that risk, but in our past discussions, I thought before you wanted to go through the purchase and putting all that money into it, that you wanted some assurance from the town.
That is
Yeah,
true,
whatever.
but I think when I'm assessing 50%, I probably unknowingly was giving you my upper limit, my upper maximum of whatever is going to be. And I think it's highly unlikely that our revenue is going to get that far that fast, and if we did, I'm fine coming back and rediscussing this with you guys. On the, from this, right now, this seems like I'm unnecessarily burdening us all with, from the standpoint of like, I mean, just to give you ballpark
That's fine.
numbers, right now, our, I guess I don't need to give gross revenue numbers, but, our butchering revenue is less than a quarter of our total revenues. So that is expected to increase, but would it go to above 50% when we're expanding the growth of our catering operation as well? I doubt it. So, yeah, I don't know what that means to everybody, but yeah, anyways. Probably should have thought before.
No,
Well,
I mean, I
but
think-
if you do that, in 5 or 10 years, this board will be completely different.
Yeah,
They may not want, they may, who knows their
Sure.
philosophy at that time.
and they might tell me no.
Right.
Yeah, I understand that's the risk, and that's why I initially was leaning on the side of maximums, because I didn't wanna run into that situation. But, maybe that situation isn't as daunting as it could be, So anyways, I'll let you guys decide where to go from there.
If it's easier for the town board to think of it as getting rid of this development district and creating a new one versus amending, at the end of the day, I think it's the same thing. Cause he's still gonna need a restaurant. He's just needing to expand it to also include butchering, so greater percentage, so. Think of however you want, getting rid of DD3 and creating a new development district, or just amending the zoning code.
Or you can get rid of the DD3 and put it back to the zoning around it.
I
But
need to
that
do a little bit more research, but it looks like what was there before, so the town. Back in the 60s or 70s, whenever this came in, had 3 zones. Residential, business, and development districts. And it looks like what the property for DD3 is now was business district. That correlates to our B1 zone now, I don't know. But
So
it
it wouldn't
wasn't-
go to what's the surrounding area, it would go back to what it was back in.
That would be my
79.
presumption. If the argument by Michael is that it just goes back to what it was before, then my presumption would be that it would be D1, not AR.
Well,
But
B1 wouldn't be bad for him, right?
That the entire thing, all 12 acres would be B1. And so
Then the mobile trailer becomes moot.
B1,
Yeah, so I mean, I'm speaking for myself, I think it would be in the public's best interest if we. Again, whether you're thinking about it as a brand new development district or a modification of the existing one, it would be to have language in there that's appropriate for, if the town board feels like this is a use that is acceptable for the property. To allow a way for it to move in that direction with setbacks and, for stream buffers and all that stuff
Right.
that I think is necessary and appropriate. If he continues under this current development district, none of that is in there.
Right.
So
Right, I agree.
I-
So it's a moot point. I mean, I, in principle, we're gonna do what Michael is asking for, because we're gonna put in all these new conditions. Buffers, et cetera, et cetera.
I think that would be in the public's best
Yeah,
interest
yeah.
if we treated it like we treat all the other parts of the town with setbacks and things like that. So that would be my recommendation, is that we decide that it merits proposal, or the proposal merits further consideration, and refer it to the planning board for consideration, and also their recommendations on the appropriate setbacks and things like that for that.
Because they had concerns. Do you remember Carl, you were there, what were the concerns? You
Well,
remember?
he's already in the layout of his parking space and that sort of stuff, deals with the setbacks from the highway. They have to put some bushes and trees along between 96 and the parking space, and that, because that part would work. There was a discussion about the deliveries
Right,
for a semi coming in, and that has to be able to completely get off at 96 and turn in the property to back into their loading bay, which they've got room to do that on the north side of the building before you get into that little bit of wetland that's in the corner part of it there. And the other one that came up was the entertainment tent for holding events there, that I guess you brought up there, Maya, is that we don't really have a town regulation that deals with those things. And that was part of the discussion between the planning board and that, is at some point, the town ought to create something, language in that realm to deal with it. Like Taganic has their entertainment tent down there. And it's something that's a relatively new feature. It goes along with, to create a facility that people can get, you can hold a wedding event in or something like that. And so that's really something that's not in the current town code. And that was one of the questions from the planning board there, was trying to figure out how we're gonna deal with that. Because it does get into, if you have a band for a wedding event or something like that, inside of a regular building, you at least get some soundproofing. The walls of a tent probably don't do much to mute the sound in that. Do you get into something that says you gotta cut it off by 10 o'clock at night or something?
well, we have a noise ordinance that says it. No?
We don't have a noise ordinance in effect.
Wait,
We have some
we
kind of
don't. I
noise.
thought I
ordinance.
was reading one today that I printed off from the website or something.
We have
Maybe I was
some-
reading the Trumansburg one or
The
something.
village.
Might be the
has one.
village, yeah.
That's what I was reading.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought I was reading the Town of Ulysses one.
No, we actually, in the 2009 update to the zoning, it used to be that zoning had a noise ordinance in it. And then it was recommended that that's not an appropriate place for noise ordinance. And so it got eliminated. So,
Well, the county, I mean, there is a New York State or county.
right, there's the New York State one, but it's really related to transportation, it's trucks, like
Truck.
We had
Jack
talked
race.
about one earlier this year,
Yeah,
it's
right.
just gotten.
We need to do that.
Well, I thought that you were going to.
I was gonna.
Yeah.
Didn't we have a whole thing where we worked?
We worked on a thing, but it was like, it did not conform with the reasonable
Standard.
standard. You needed to use a decibel
Right,
meter.
right.
So,
We gotta go back to the reasonable person. standard.
yeah,
Started.
that's what I heard.
But then the issue,
So-
with all of these things, the issue is enforcement. You could have a statute on the books.
We'll put it on a future agenda.
Is Mark gonna get up at 12 at night and go issue a summons to somebody?
I can tell you that's not
It's not
a
gonna happen.
strategy to use, but let's pick that one up. So I'm suggesting that we do what Neil suggested, which is say that I'd personally like to say, I think this is a fantastic thing for our community. And so I appreciate that as a business owner, you want to expand in the town of Ulysses. So I think that's a wonderful thing. I think that property's been sitting vacant for a very long time, and I would love to see have it wonderful new use. So thank you. Thank you for sitting through this process with us. So I'd like to propose that we take Neil's suggestion and we refer it to the planning board. I'm gonna move that we refer this for further consideration to the planning board for further review, and also request that they propose some development standards for Development District 3 for the town board to consider.
So,
I'll
yeah,
second.
well, I'm not convinced that it needs to be Development District 3. I think we should take this initiative and look at all of our development districts, at least the ones that are defunct.
Yeah.
And work on either I don't know the right verb it is, but that they're,
dismantling them.
whatever that is, that dismantles them and puts them back into whatever the zoning is around them or whatever that looks like.
Maybe that would be a part of like
The comprehensive plan.
comprehensive plan and then.
That's too far out. I mean, we keep kicking this can down the road. I mean, the comprehensive plan is 2 years out. At best.
Yeah.
And this is a zoning thing, that we have right now. That we should look at those.
I think. I definitely think it might be a worth exercise to go through and see what of the development districts are defunct or no longer working within whatever was established when they were established. I think for this particular one, this could go right to the planning board and have them start looking at it, because
Well, we need to give them direction on whether or not. What it becomes, what is this? Is this a new development district? Is it? Zoned into what, ag, and then goes to the BZA and they give them variances, or, there's
No,
different
you're right.
vehicles that they can do.
I-
To get to where they need.
Well,
they
the,
need to go.
the development district is so you actually don't have to go to the BZA. You're writing in the rules of the development district to conform to whatever its own ideas.
Correct.
So it doesn't need, if it went to the like the Inn at Taganek went to the BZA already, they rejected them.
Mhm.
Now they're coming back with the idea of a development district. It wouldn't go anywhere near the BZA. It could go to the planning board, but it wouldn't go to the BZA.
Well, it doesn't sound like what they're proposing is really far fetched.
Right,
No.
right.
no,
Yeah.
but I think it's appropriate to
but he
maintain it
has-
as a development district,
but
and
that-
whether it's a refurbishment or remodification of DD3 or DD. I don't know what
Yes,
number we're up to.
TG.
It'd be weird to just eliminate TD3 and
Yeah,
then just have it.
So, but I think that keeping it or maintaining it, rebranding the
I think we
development
just need to be
district.
careful with it. I just don't want to make it, I don't want to slow you down, but, I think we have an issue here with development districts that we need to address.
I agree with that,
Yeah.
and we should review them all. I think for this case, and there's a certain time of the essence in terms of the transaction happening, it seems.
Well, I made a motion.
Yeah, all right.
So is there a
Seconded
second?
I didn't say,
Oh, you did,
I did,
oh, okay,
I'm sorry, I didn't realize there was a second. Okay.
Do you
but then we
remember
went into discussion.
right.
Michael,
so what was your,
My motion is I'm proposing that we find that the proposal merits further consideration, and we refer it to the planning board for their further review, and also their recommendations on alterations to the language of the development district to provide things related to lot dimensions, building standards, stream and wetland standards, signage, et cetera, off-street parking,
Floodplains.
floodplains.
I just want to make sure we're not just, that you have the alterations to the development district, I like that we're adding things to it, but I don't want to make sure we're steering them to modifying it right away until we have, some more legal review, and you guys can, you Nate can talk about it.
I guess for the question is for the lawyer, is it better to start over again with a new development district or just modify the development district 3?
Well, I mean, if I've read Development District 3, it's a real light development
Mm-hmm.
district. It's a very short. I don't know if there's any substantive difference to modifying / starting fresh with new language. It's not It's
Cause
not,
none of this, I mean, besides
Right.
the tract, but if there's a subdivision that changes too. I think it's pretty much an overhaul.
yeah.
Thank you, guys.
We haven't
We
voted
haven't
yet.
voted yet.
Oh,
Is there any further,
uh,
any further discussion or comment? Then I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Was that unanimous?
No, yeah, no, I just have Niels, I mean. When can this go before the planning board at the next meeting?
I'll have it on their discussion. It's gonna be brief, but next week, let's do the evening.
Yeah.
We'll just talk about what your motion was and that's like before them and get them rolling.
And then, just so we can go over this briefly, but January meeting, it comes back here. Or come back to them for their January meeting, and then it needs 30 days before a hearing, and then we'd be looking to a hearing in February.
If everyone. I don't know
If everything-
the timeline, but I think the best case scenario with. Like New Year's and the planning board meeting and your guys'
We're not
meeting, that it
meeting.
might be February, maybe
Hmm.
March before we come back to the final decision. That's the total scope of timeline for a process like this.
Because the planning board will have a public hearing, I would imagine they'll schedule one.
If we keep consistent with past, well, then I would expect that they would hold a public hearing.
And we would be required to,
You would have to.
yes. Town board would be required to.
Yes.
And is the sale pending this approval? Is the
What's it?
sales?
Yeah. Everything's
Pending this
contingent on
approval.
this.
You know, the woman was in here,
Yeah, she was
yeah, wanted to get
desperate, she
the
was
ball
kind
rolling.
of desperate.
Right.
That
Yeah.
doesn't mean we should be desperate, but I would like it to move forward as quickly as we can.
Keep the ball rolling.
Yeah.
See what we can do.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Thank
Thank you
you.
again for coming. Okay,
Do you have any questions for me?
I don't have any more questions for you. Thank you
Thank
very much. We appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is the scheduling our 2024 organizational meeting. It has to be that first week in January. I was gonna propose Thursday, January 4th. And see if that was if you have your calendars available. We don't have to schedule it tonight if you're not sure if that date works for you.
Fine with me.
Fine with me.
8:30, 8:15, 9.
AM.
Yes, AM. I like you guys very much, but I do not want to start a meeting with you at 8:30. 8:30 works? Michael, does that date work for you? Okay. Then we will plan, that.
Would you say 30?
8:30?
Thursday, January 4th.
Okay.
Can't believe we're talking about January already.
Just procedurally, I just want to say again, I think in terms of development, it should have come to us first, so we could just refer it to the planning board. We wasted a month by going to the planning board first.
I think, from my understanding of what happened, that when the request came in to go to the planning board, in between the request coming in and the plans being more finalized by the proposed property owner, it triggered the meeting, the development district, review to happen. So, and I think the real game changer in that situation, if I understand correctly, and I could be wrong, is that in the initial proposal, there wasn't gonna be a subdivision. And so that subdivision request consideration really meant that it should be considered by the town board. So when it initially came in, it seemed like it could be handled just through the planning board process. And so, the subdivision changes the situation.
But the planning board deals with something.
They do, but there's no language in the development district about the subdivision. Right, so, in a subdivision in the agricultural zone, you have to have 400 feet of frontage and a minimum of 2 acres. There's nothing in our development district
Right,
for this development district that specifies what that subdivision would look like.
right.
So. Okay, and then, a board notification, we received. Word that a cannabis dispensary, is pending opening, at 1708 Trumansburg Road. That's right over, in the vicinity of,
The mama said.
yeah, Perry City 96 area, intersection area.
Would that be a new building?
It's the little house right next door to Mama Setting Eyes.
So it's an
Oh,
existing
okay.
building.
So it's an existing building with no modifications. Yep,
It's an existing.
It hasn't come to the-
hasn't come in either. Okay.
So, but
That's a business district.
I think it is.
so they haven't filed any paperwork with the planning board or with the town officially. What we received was notified by law, by New York State law, they have to notify us, and the town board has a window of 30 days to let the state know whether or not we have a concern.
Yeah, the same as the new liquor license. Is this the first one we've received?
Yes, and that's why it's coming before you.
Okay.
So, we wanted to make sure that, the town board was aware of it, and, I didn't personally have any concerns about the licensing. I didn't think there's not a whole lot we can do anyway, but, I wanted to make sure that the town board was aware that it happened. Okay,
The legal use.
yep. So, yeah, basically, it's very similar to a liquor license. Thank you for that parallel situation, so. I will assume that no comment means effectively no action. Okay, and then that brings us, oh, sure.
Would that go to like Neil's?
The liquor license part, no.
No, well, if it's a business,
It's in a business district. it
yes,
looks like.
well, that map doesn't show, but I'm pretty sure it's in the district.
Well, it's. Right here. Yeah.
Is it right in the,
Well, I don't know what.
Yeah.
What, but it's close to that. Maybe.
It's right on Van Dorn's,
It's just, Right. it's on the same parcel as.
is the building.
Which is probably
Yeah.
what that blue is.
So it must be,
so as long as the business in the business district, then. Yeah, you don't want it in the neighborhood or something.
Fine with me.
Okay,
Is that? Since this is new, can that be another? Zoning issue when you're talking about permitted uses in some of our language? You put dispensaries in there. I mean, when we wrote that before, they didn't exist.
right. We'll have to look into that. I know from an agricultural standpoint, that, a property can have, under the new New York State law, it's considered an agricultural product. So if a place is doing if there's a grow operation, they can actually effectively have a farm stand anywhere in the ag zone.
Yeah.
Because it's considered an agricultural product now. So, what other regulations they would have to comply with New York State, but I'm happy to, that'll be an interesting thing. I'm assuming that that's now gonna be factored into zoning considerations. I wonder if it would be classified just as a retail establishment or fall under a category that we
Yeah,
already have in a
good point.
business.
I mean, that's what a liquor store would fall into, right?
yeah,
Just the
I
retail.
read something about like you can't have it within certain.
School,
Schools,
yeah.
Oh,
within a certain
schools, daycare
distance from
centers,
school,
probably,
yeah.
kind of thing, yeah.
something like that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
We're kind of a new uncharted territory in some ways. Just because, this will be I think this might be if it opens anytime soon, I think this might be the first in Tompkins County that's not in a denser, commercial zone. Like there's in Ithaca, but it's downtown, so.
there's one out by Newfield on Route 13, I think.
I think there's one out in Dryden too, but I don't know if they've opened yet. So. It's an interesting question. We should definitely follow up on that. I imagine to your point that it's probably similar to a liquor store with a classification. But we can certainly. get
I mean,
further
do we
clarity on that.
regulate liquor stores in
Well, the department,
in our zoning? Probably not.
It's considered, I think it's, well, I mean, we certainly have one in the town of Ulysses, so I don't think we specified that's a particular type of retail we allow. I
Right.
think it just falls under a much more broad
then they have to get the
category.
license from the state.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what the-
Yeah, farm distillery, bar, farm brewery, farm cidery, winery, farms winery, but no liquor store specifically was called out. Zoning.
Nothing under L.
I just did a search.
Okay,
Okay. And that brings us to the item Michael added, so I will turn it over to you. Related to security at the public information session on 11/9.
Yeah, so anyway, I just wanted to follow up with, Chris had sent this out, just wanted to follow up with it, that. There were a few things in here, I didn't highlight them, that surprised me. You had said that staff was nervous about it. And the reason I wanted to follow up was because, it created some tension within the town. I don't know that some of the people said they didn't know who your husband was. I didn't know I don't know if he was there, as security, or, if we needed security. Or if he saw, his wife in danger, or, what he felt like, right? And so, I didn't, want to compromise him as, he's like a non-uniformed officer, or, if he was acting as an officer. So this is something I think we should, because we have or had a safety committee, so that, if we've got this, to say, okay, what's, how do we handle this? So if we do need security, that, do we have a, security guard sitting in the room, or a uniformed officer or something? Because, we're fortunate, we're in a very nice town, so there's not many things we have to worry about here. I'm going to relate it to Cornell. We've got, security at the Jewish living centers, and there's a lot of security that's been bumped up because of what's gone on. So,
but it was very awkward, to say the least. I mean, I've had feedback from people over there.
Well,
It was awkward, but it was awkward from the beginning too, and I'm not,
What was awkward from the beginning?
well, just standing up and pointing your finger at somebody. I don't think Jordan was just defending his wife. Jordan is a trained officer to de-escalate situations before they escalate. That's what he's trained to do. So, and that's what I saw him doing. And I can see
we were
perception.
facing that, those people, was
Yes,
behind. So all
yeah.
I'm saying is that, just, it's a chance to talk about it.
Yeah.
And say, okay, as we're going into one of these again, what would we do, right? How do we handle this? Do we try to have security, on call, sort of thing, as one of our professional organizations? Or, because you had said you had called it the Trumansburg PD, right?
So, yes,
Yeah.
so the Trumansburg Police, keep one officer is on duty in the evening. There's only one officer. And, the school was also having an event simultaneously. So the idea of having the officer inside a building, an armed officer inside a building during public meeting, sends a very specific message of itself. I would imagine had we had an armed officer present in the room, we also would have heard concerns from the public about intimidation. Because it leads to a very different kind of feeling to have that officer present in that way. I did reach out to the village and the reason is because I take security, I feel like, is my number one priority. We take security at the town very seriously. The unfortunate reality is that we're living in a period of time, and we've been living in the period of time now for a couple of decades, where people sometimes violently act and think afterwards for any number of reasons. And town government, I know this will surprise everybody, but not everybody is happy with public officials. We all deal with incidences in my time in the town, and my time in the town's shorter than a lot of our staff. Threats have been made. I've received threats that have been reported. Other staff members have received threats that they have reported. These are situations that safety matters. And so we have, and I'm not going to disclose to the public, out of security safety measures, what our specific measures are. But when we're in town hall, we have different procedures and policies in place for how we manage situations. We receive training from experts in safety and security, because we do live in a nice town, and with their Sandy Hook was a nice town. Uvalde, Texas was a nice
Yeah,
town. These things, it
we
happen.
all agree with that. But I think the specific of what happened that night is very specific.
It is specific, but the general members of the public, we had a lot of civic engagement, and all the other civic engagement that happened involved people sitting down, yes, expressing their opinions. The individual in question interrupted a public meeting by coming out of his seat, moving into the aisle and interrupting everything. He was asked to sit down. He was not evicted from the meeting. He was not arrested,
I'm not, yes.
but he was behaving in a way that is not appropriate in a public meeting. This was not all of us just hanging out as friends. This is a public meeting, and the public has the right to hear from the town on the purpose of the meeting. And the purpose of the meeting was for the town to share information about how certain processes would happen if certain things related to the public acquisition of land occurred. It is not the right of the public. We have,
That's not, I'm not disagreeing with any of that. I'm just saying the way it looks. That your husband is in the back and he walks around and stands by Joel. And he's your husband. It's a confusing look.
okay, so my husband attended that meeting as a member of the public.
Right, but then he moved to a different.
And he did,
A different position.
yes, and he de-escalated that situation.
I don't want you to defend him. I just want you to understand what it looked like.
I understand what it looked
I
like.
don't know that you do. I don't know.
I understand that a member of the public behaved inappropriately, and an officer, a trained officer who is legally allowed to behave in the way that he did, asked the gentleman to sit down.
I feel like you're getting defensive.
Would it make a difference if it was somebody else who's an off-duty officer that had done it, if it wasn't her husband?
I think so. Sure. I have no, yes.
So it's just the fact that it was her
So-
husband.
It's also the fact that
So
he
it's
was he wasn't in uniform. We didn't know who he was. I mean, he was just walked around and stood by Joel as if he was gonna do, he was gonna make sure he says, got back in his place.
So first off, he
He just
didn't come
had to
within
sit
10
down.
feet of him. He
I
did not
didn't-
come up next to him,
I didn't say next to, he walked around and was next to the aisle where Joel was sitting.
and he asked him to sit down.
Yeah, I know what he did.
But yeah, it was intimidating to the people. It was
Forget it.
uncomfortable for them.
It was also
Yeah.
uncomfortable for somebody in the public, because I had somebody in the public who was uncomfortable as well, that found that the meeting being interrupted by a member of the public was also uncomfortable. Coming out into the aisle is
Yeah,
uncomfortable
but
for
we
other
happen to know
people.
Joel, and Joel.
Yeah.
I don't know
I don't
him.
know Joel.
Okay, well,
Right.
Joel's been around the community for a long time, and Joel is a very nice person, and he's probably the last person I would expect to ever assault any of us. And I've been to a lot of events, so all I wanted to do was to talk about this and say, if all these things are coming up and if threats are being made, I think it would be a courtesy to us to have one of our meetings in the back room and say, hey, these threats are coming out. What do we do? And then use the safety committee to say, okay, how are we going to handle these things? But it was, Joel stood up, yes, but Jordan was the only one that moved about the room, and for those people out there, it felt uncomfortable. So that's all we're trying to say, is it felt uncomfortable to them, and they were, some of them were put out. Again, this is a nice community. I don't think that, I don't think that Jordan's actions didn't feel that they were de-escalatory. They felt it was like, whoa, what's going on here? Because he was approaching these people from behind. They didn't see it. He gets up and makes himself big and loud, and they're like, hey, what's going on here? So that's all. I would just hope that we can keep the peace in the town, kind of thing. That's all.
I mean, I think that was what Jordan had intended to do. It's just trying to keep piece of the meeting continuous so we can get the information out to the public and the public can ask the questions. I do think when we're looking forward to other meetings, when they're not necessarily here, maybe we should all discuss options and what's available. There is usually only one town, village police officer on duty at a time. We can't always have them at a meeting. And I do agree that if we had somebody in the meeting that was armed, that would have set people off from the beginning on all sides of things.
I think if you.
So I think we
yeah.
just need to game plan, and I think you and I are in the safety committee.
So, yeah, I think.
Yeah. So maybe that is something, we never had a meeting. So maybe that is something we should just talk about and look forward to the future, because we're gonna be getting into meetings for the comp plan. We're gonna be getting meetings on all our other plans and things that are coming up in the future. And they're not all gonna be able to be fit in here. So we do need to make sure that we're having appropriate measures in place to ensure the safety of all people at meetings.
I just think it could have been, you introduce Jordan, here's my, this is my husband, he's in the back of the room, he also happens to be a law enforcement person, and he's gonna look out for us. Then at least people would know what he was doing.
Well, he was not formally requested to serve as security.
Right, then it appeared though, that he was acting as security.
Right, but he's.
And maybe as your
He's
No,
not serving, no,
he was coming to make sure you were not in jeopardy.
no, he's an interested member of the public. I mean, and I want to be very cautious about speaking for him. But in the same way that if a doctor is in the room and a medical issue happens, actually Jordan's online, he can speak
Thank
for
you, good,
himself.
I'm glad.
Can you come off of mute, or Krista, can you remove him from mute?
And really, I'm just talking about the way it appeared. Everyone, I think everyone had good intentions.
Go
Right?
ahead,
I'm sorry,
Jordan.
can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay, so yeah, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to get to speak and at least give a rendition of what happened. I also appreciate that what's been said several times is we have nice people in the town. And I appreciate that we decidedly do. That's one of the reasons we choose to live in this town. However, nice people turn very unkind very quickly. And as I'm sure some of you are aware, the Washburns were accosted on their own property this week by some nice people that were at the meeting. And again, I'm sure most of you there know my background. I would appreciate my wife not pointing me out at a meeting because of what I do professionally, and because a large portion of the security I do provide on a professional level is done in a covert manner. I've done both covert and overt. Covert is traditionally what I'm called upon, and I have done this on hundreds of occasions. I've been called to, without going into the details, many different spots. So unfortunately, the standard operating procedure we utilize is people are allowed to disagree, they're allowed to yell and scream, frankly. However, when someone makes an overt action, like leaving their seat and beginning to approach, we would intercede with some form of verbal communication. If that is sufficient, as it was in this case, so to your point, Rich, I stayed in my seat until that gentleman stood up. I walked over to the side. I asked him to sit down. He sat down, and then what did I do immediately? Not 5 seconds after that, I did exactly what I'm trained to do. I walked back to my seat and I sat right back down. I didn't stand and hulk around. I didn't walk through the meeting repeatedly. As he became a threat, I walked over, addressed him verbally, which thank goodness he was a nice individual, and that's all it took. It just took some reminding that, hey, you're at a public meeting. You sit down and wait your turn. You're welcome to disagree. However, you can't become a physically obstructive presence to the meeting. You can't stand up, become intimidating, and you can't approach the people who are hosting the meeting. And that's typically what we would utilize is our guidelines to say, this is where it crosses the line. So as I'm sure you're aware, people disagreed and people murmured for the entire meeting, and there was a lot of back chatter. We don't, as a state police officer, we don't get involved in any of that. That's not my business, frankly. If they want to disagree, they're more than welcome to. However, when they become a physical presence or a possible physical threat, that's when we do intercede. And I agree with Mike on the sense that it might be worth you guys talking amongst yourselves to see whether you do want armed security or unarmed security. Again, I've done this for many different towns and many different locations. armed security decidedly brings its own issues. And it is far more intimidating to have an officer there. Frankly, I like that. I like to see armed guards everywhere I go. But as Trumansburg and Ulysses residents, I'm not sure that they would necessarily welcome an overt security guard armed as they walked in the building, or they would welcome metal detectors coming through as the town I grew up in had. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. All right,
So we have action.
So go for safety committee and
Yeah. Well,
safety away.
So anyway, thanks for having the discussion.
Okay, we have upcoming events is next on the agenda. We already covered the special election on December 6th. The town will hold a special town board meeting on December 7th. At that meeting is when Carissa will because of how state election law works, she'll make an announcement about the results of the election from December 6th. We are going to, the December 12th meeting is starting an hour early at 6 p.m. So that constitutes a special meeting. Because it's starting an hour early. You can always start your meeting late, but you can't start it early unless you call a special meeting. And so I appreciate thank you to the rest of my town board members for accommodating an earlier start so that I can leave at 7.
So it is a regular town board meeting. We're just starting an hour early, right?
No, actually, we canceled the regular town board meeting. It's a special one. A regular meeting, we could start at 7:30, a regular meeting.
Meeting is a couple hours.
gonna-
long,
What we're gonna be doing.
Yes, is it
It's essentially.
It's the same meeting,
Same
just
material.
starting an
Okay.
hour early, but we have to call it a special one because it's starting an hour early and we said,
and it should be probably a short meeting.
I am doing my best for you,
Well,
Rich.
you'll let me know what I need.
I'm gonna,
Approve the voucher.
yeah, I'm gonna do my best to, that's why we're starting an hour early and we're gonna get all the business, the real business done and then you guys can hang out or not. But right now it's not looking like a long meeting,
Right.
so, and then we have canceled the December 26th meeting. That brings us to approval of the minutes. We had minutes that were posted on the website. Carissa, correct me if I'm wrong, we had the 2 sets from the 24th. We had a special meeting that started an hour early and a regular meeting that started on time.
The 14th was also there.
That just got posted today at 4 o'clock.
Oh.
Oh, I
Got
didn't
it.
see.
Maybe.
So put
Yeah,
that week.
I would.
I'm gonna put a lot of those.
Oh, that's right. Oh, and yes, they're outstanding from that. We're not reviewing those tonight. So right now we're only considering the 24th and then we'll catch ourselves up. Carissa, like I said, Carissa has been doing a lot of work with the getting us ready for the special election, just the procedural process.
Mm.
And so, and I do really appreciate that. So, did anybody have any alterations they needed to the 2 sets of minutes from October 24th? No, then I'll accept a motion to approve as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okie dokie. And that brings us back to privilege of the floor. We have 10 minutes allotted for this. Let me get my stuff going. Is there anybody, as a reminder, anybody is welcome to speak up to 3 minutes. And I'll go back and forth from in the room to online. Is there anybody in person who wishes to speak? Please go ahead.
Sure. My name is Sage Peak and I live on Cold Springs Road in Trumansburg. And I just really wanted to thank the Washburns and everybody who has come together for the proposed purchase of this recreational land. I have children. I've seen the use of those fields at the schools, which is oftentimes can get really muddy. Oftentimes can't use them. When it gets muddy, there's a lot of use. You have to give them a break. And so I think it's going to be really great for the current, but also the future use and hopefully bring lots of families to our area. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody online who wishes to address the town board?
Yeah,
Please go ahead.
come off mute.
There
Okay,
you
now
go.
can you hear me? There we go.
Yep, sure
Sorry, I
can.
couldn't figure out how to raise my hand, sorry. So I just wanted to reference your last discussion about the information meeting, the information session. I was sitting right behind the man who stood up. I did not feel threatened by him. I did not turn around, so I didn't actually see it. But I did feel much more threatened by, I didn't know he was your husband. I didn't know he was a police officer. All I heard was a large, loud voice going, sit down, sit down. And that scared me a heck of a lot more than the guy who stood up behind me. So I just want to say that was my reaction. I understand you have, safety issues or whatever. To me, it was very, very uncomfortable, his reaction to that. He was just standing up talking. He wasn't doing anything. He wasn't waving his arms. He didn't go out into the aisle. He was just standing up talking. That's it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Is there anybody in person who wishes to address the town board? Roxanne, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on that and thank Michael for raising it and you all for having that discussion. The people that I was sitting near, I was almost parallel to the person who stood up, got very uncomfortable with when that happened, the coming around and yelling very loudly at him standing there. And so I think that when the safety committee talks about these things, it would be good if the board decides that we should have security, that it's identified to the public that we do have a security person here, and that may be called upon if people aren't adhering to the rules, so that people don't become unnecessarily frightened by something like that. And just because people, you don't want people to go off on a strange reaction. And so just having everybody understand and I, was when I was the supervisor, ran several meetings. It was during the height of fracking tension, and that was very controversial. And there were people in the audience who often would, stand up and shout and do things, and it is difficult. And so I also would like to see the board, because you're running a meeting, first say, I would like people shouldn't be standing up. You need to sit down, or you need to do this. And then if it's not corrected, have a security person, if they're there, do something. So just things to think about with the safety committee. I totally get being uncomfortable if people get angry in the room, but just having a way and having the rest of the people understand what might be happening. So in these days where things happen so quickly, and they can be very frightening. So thanks.
Thank you. Is there anybody online who wishes to address the town board? Not seeing anybody else wishing to address the town board. I would open it back up to the room in here, but we've covered everybody. So thank you for gold star participation. Is there anybody else online?
I just have a question. My question is, I have to admit, I didn't sit in front of my computer for the last 2.5 or 3 hours. No, 2.5 hours. No, 3. 2 hours.
2 hours.
2 hours. Well, it felt like a long time, but I do take an interest in the town and what goes on. But I have, it says draft, but it's an agenda that I found somewhere on the Ulysses website. And did you address the Inataganic tonight? Did I miss something?
No, it's listed as a draft agenda because it's the proposed agenda that I put out, and then the town board makes it an official agenda when they adopt it. And originally the Inataganic was supposed to have a presentation tonight, and then earlier today they requested for their own timing reasons, they requested to move it to January. They're going to be presenting to us, I think on the 23rd of January, but it will be in my agenda packet. That's the tentative date I offered for them to come back. So no, you didn't miss anything. It just was struck from the agenda because there was no presentation to be had.
And the other question was about the wasn't the town board supposed to meet with the grassroots people about their property?
So I covered, there is going to be a meeting with some representatives from grassroots, from Trumansburg Community Recreation, and Liz Weatherby and I from the town board on Thursday. There's going to be a fairly informal conversation about the grassroots wants to have a conversation. So that's what we're going to do.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Is there anybody else online who wishes to address the town board? Okay, then I will.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Wasn't expecting you to.
Well, it's a